Hello there, Drew Hanish, Whiskey Lore, and it is time for another one of my tasting videos. And this time going out to Colorado for Distillery 291, and I literally went out to Distillery 291 in Colorado Springs, had a chance to get a tour with Emily, who does their social media, and also had the opportunity to talk to Michael Myers and meet him face to face after doing a Whiskey Lore podcast episode and interview with him. And when I left, they were nice enough to give me some whiskey to bring with me and a chance to taste it and share it with you. Now, one of the things that makes this distillery unique is a process that they do with each of their whiskeys. Being in Colorado, and I've taken a trip to Colorado before in the fall, and let me tell you, if you haven't been to Colorado, northern New Mexico, any of the treed areas of Utah, but mostly Colorado, you will be amazed when the fall leaves change how yellow everything is. And that yellow comes from aspen trees. And so that's the secret ingredient that's not so secret because they actually say it on the front of each of their bottles. But what they do is they take a aspen stave, they put it on a Weber grill, and then they get this nice toast on it, and then they drop it in the barrel for about 3 weeks, pull it out, and all of a sudden you have a very unique additional character to the whiskey. Now, I'm going to be tasting 3 different things here. One of them is much more widely available. The other 2 might be a little bit tough to get, but I wanted to demonstrate these because I think they kind of give you a feel for one of the key ingredients that they use. One thing you'll notice about Colorado 291, they have my favorite bottle. I don't know that there's a cooler looking bottle on the market than this one. You can tell the artistic background of Michael Myers, who came up with this. It's a beautiful, beautiful bottle just in and of itself. And then it has this nice little leather looking label. Their awards are all listed down here. And then if you look up here at the top, it actually comes with a wired cage for the cork and has a beautiful cork on it as well. It's a beveled in cork, which you can see right there with their name on top. And oh man. And then that other piece of their whiskey that you're about to find out about that I also really, really like. And that is one of the grains that stands out in their whiskey over a lot of other whiskeys that use the same ingredient. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to go through and start with basically unaged whiskey. This is a little sample bottle they gave me of what is called 291 Fresh. It is a 90 proof bourbon. It's not a bourbon officially because it has not been put into a wooden cask. So it's a whiskey, but it's made with the same mash bill as their Colorado bourbon. So now this was a tough one for me because nosing's still a little bit of a challenge for me, but there's a trick that Michael taught me during the video that is very handy. This is a glass that had fresh in it yesterday, and I have not washed it yet. And the reason I haven't washed it is because you get that whiskey dried on the bottom of your glass, and it can help you smell the grain. I'm twirling it by habit. There's nothing in it. And usually this works. You can smell the grain. But this is such a light smelling spirit that you really, I can't pick it up in there, but it does work. I actually did on the other two, and got some notes that I did not pick up when doing a regular nosing of it. This is 45% alcohol, corn, malted rye, and malted barley. The malted rye is that grain that I'm talking about that is very unique for them. There are distilleries I've been to that have done malted rye, but it is a overpowering staple in everything I've had in Colorado Distillery 291's line. And it's a really nice herbally rye that comes in. This noses with a bit of citrus. You're not going to be getting any of the caramel, vanilla, oakiness. All of that is not there. So you're really getting a chance to smell the grain. The rye is there. It's a nice, gentle, light rye. You know, this, I guess you would use this as a mixer. And you could probably use it to substitute for gin. In fact, I'll tell you what I'm going to probably do with this is I may use this in place of gin for my Vesper Martini, which is 3 parts gin, 1 part vodka, and then Canela Lay, half measure of that. And I may end up using this instead. It'll be very light and mellow. You almost could probably make a Vesper out of this alone, or add a little vodka to it, I guess. That's interesting. Usually you tend to get more of the legs, I think, off of whiskeys that have had some age, but this actually does. It has thick but streaming legs on it. And I get a lemon out of that. Ooh, you get the grain. The grain comes through. It's like you are tasting the corn. You're getting a little bit of a herbal rye to it. It's actually a really nice, mellow drinker. And at 45 ABV, I think that would be fine. It's interesting. It sort of ends with a mint. There's just like this nice little hint of mint at the end of that. All right, next up we're going to go for the Colorado Distillery 291 bourbon whiskey, and this is finished with one of those wood staves, Weber Grill Special, aspen wood. Oh, there's a, you get a nice wood note there. The spice that's coming through on this is a cinnamon. And I'm trying to peg, it's actually like a cross between a fireball cinnamon meets a baking spice cinnamon. It's really nice. The rye is there. It's very herbally and it blends so nicely into the rest of the nose. Now, when I got my dry glass of this the next morning, it's so interesting because it smelled of fall. It smelled of crushed leaves late in the season, like a early November on a somewhat pleasant day, and there's that kind of smoky fall scent in the air. It's really, really nice. It does not take long to recognize the wood in this and what the wood does. Vanilla, caramel, almost like a toffee. There's a spice in the middle of that. Nice character to the whiskey. It's It feels substantial in your mouth. It's not overly heavy, but it's got a nice substantial feel to it. There's a little earthiness to it. I get a little of that mint on the finish there. That I don't know if that mint is just like a really fresh rye. That herbally rye just really lingers nicely on the finish. This is one of those whiskeys. It does have a little bit of like a burnt char tannin kind of thing going on, but it's really light. And otherwise, I'm getting the herbal and the maybe citrusy lemon kind of thing going on. But that rye really pops. And part of me thinks that the reason the rye pops so much out of this, you can almost drink this as a rye whiskey, but what's nice about it is it doesn't burn. You know, it is a nice, pleasant drinking rye whiskey, or bourbon whiskey, high rye. And I can tell you that this is a dangerous whiskey for me. I will say this is one of my favorite bourbon whiskeys. And the reason why it's one of my favorites is because of that herbally rye that's in there. It's just really, really nice. And then it comes on, ooh, there's a little tea, a little black tea on the finish there. Isn't that interesting? Just like tap me on the shoulder there at the end. You can tell I'm ADD. I'm all over the place on this. But yeah, I mean, I really, really like that kind of bourbony rye, but not overly aggressive and very drinkable. And this is a whiskey that I have gotten into trouble before. Pour a glass, really enjoy it. What the heck? I'll pour another glass, enjoy it. Oh heck, another. So yeah, that's why I would rank that up there as one of my favorites. All right, so this is an interesting one that you may or may not be able to find, most likely not, but I wanted to do this one too because this really punctuates that rye. As Emily described it to me, it was actually a distiller's mistake. Brand new distiller coming in to work for Michael, and he put double the recipe of rye in there by mistake. So this is a high rye. This is 32% rye with 1% malted barley and the rest being corn. And so I was really, really looking forward to tasting this one. And whereas this one is bottled in bond, it's not bottled in bond, but it's that proof. It's 50% alcohol. This, I think, depends on what your bottle is, what it came out of the cask as. This particular bottle is 63.4%, and like I say, it is a high rye, so my brain tells me that it's going to probably taste more like a rye than it is going to taste like a bourbon. But here we go. And this is a year-old whiskey, just a little over a year, and then the aspen stave has also been used for this. So this one comes with a really interesting nutty oak character. I heard someone say hazelnut, but I am not a fan of hazelnut. So I think my brain is trying to say, no. But there's a little perfumey kind of thing, and maybe that's where the hazelnut comes in. On the nose, it actually is really light with the rye. You would expect the rye to really punch you in the face on a cask strength and double high rye. And when I had the dried out glass of that, I picked up a espresso coffee note on top of it. Mm-hmm. Rye. Ooh, and some power. Oh man. What happens on the end of this whiskey, the middle kind of just flows right into the finish immediately. And there's like a lemon pepper that rye is standing all the way out, though. There's a little bit of that, and maybe this comes from the aspen stave. I get a little bit of that char lingering on the finish. It's peppery. This one is definitely a lot more peppery. Actually, it kind of lingers with that, little bit of, if you have a lot of black pepper and you get kind of that heat in the back of your throat. This one definitely does that. Oh yeah. There's not really a mint on this one. Man, that is really nice. I added a little water to it, but honestly, this is one I like to just drink as it is. Even at that high proof, it is a really nice drinker. And for all those people who say, I don't like rye because it's too, it burns too much. Usually that comes from the corn mixed with the rye, but I don't get that with any of these at all. So Michael's doing a really, really good job out there with his team and creating some really, really nice whiskeys. And so I hope that you enjoyed this video. Hope you've learned a little bit more about Distillery 291, and it is becoming more widely available. I would have to go to Kentucky to go buy a bottle. I think they have it in Georgia as well. So it's not everywhere yet, but it's definitely growing. And it's one you may want to ask your local liquor store if they can get a bottle of it in, or I think you can order it off of their website as well. So very good. Well, glad to be back tasting whiskey again, and hope you enjoyed the review. And until next time, cheers and slàinte mhath.